Hey everyone, it's Gwen and I'm back with another fall DIY. This is just one DIY for this video, but I think you will really enjoy it for your fall decor. If you are new, welcome to my channel, and if you are returning or a subscriber, thank you so much for supporting my channel. Don't forget to share, like, and comment on my videos. It really does help my channel to grow. For this first DIY, I am using one of these Dollar Tree signs. It came in this sort of pumpkin shaped rectangular sign, and they came with a variety of different designs. So it doesn't really matter which one you choose. I'm flipping it over and using the blank slate and painting it with this Waverly chalk paint in the color Cashew. So I did give this a light coat of paint. I wasn't concerned about giving it full coverage, as I did want it to look a little bit distressed. And in hindsight, I really didn't have to worry too much about how I painted the bottom part, because that part will be covered, as you will see later on in this video. So just make sure you get enough of that color, because we will be decoupaging some sunflowers onto this. As you see here, I'm taking one of these pages from the calendars from 2024. Again, this is from the Dollar Tree, and I'm choosing some of these cute sunflower designs and giving it a fussy cut is, I believe, the terminology that people like to use. And basically what that means is just detail cutting around the pieces, just making sure that you eliminate as much of the white background as possible. So I did choose, I think it was around 4 of these sunflowers in various sizes and layouts. Now, again, looking back at this, at the finished look, I didn't really have to use like that last bit of sunflower towards the bottom half, because in the end, you'll see that it really wasn't visible. So if you were to replicate this DIY, I would just recommend that you do at least a couple sunflowers towards the top and maybe the corner, but it really wasn't necessary for me to put like all 4 of those sunflowers. Once all the pieces were cut out, I used a glue stick and adhered all of my pieces down to this sign. You can also use Mod Podge if you choose. However, I always find that using a glue stick is a lot more easier. And I did use a braying tool or a brayer in order to flatten out my pieces. And it does give it more of a secure hold, or it helps to really make your pieces attach more easily and flatten them out to your project. So if you have a brayer, I would highly recommend that you use one of these. I believe they're more commonly used for stamping, and I've just had it in my craft stash for many years. But if you don't have like a brayer, you can also use like a credit card if you wanted to use something to help you sort of adhere your pieces and make them a little bit flatter. But those are just optional, and you really don't need to use anything additional other than your fingers. But sometimes, you know, depending on if your fingers have glue on them, which could very well be the case, when you try to flatten out your pieces, sometimes the pieces tend to attach to your fingers and then you end up ripping your pieces. So that's kind of why using other things to help you out with that process is a lot more helpful. So here I'm using some Mod Podge just to give a protective finish to my project, making sure that my sunflowers don't lift. And I did take it all the way down to the very bottom, but again, that is an optional thing since it will be covered, so it's not really necessary to protect your whole entire piece, because everything at the bottom where you will be covering it with this fabric is not even going to be exposed. So going back to the back side of this sign, as you can see, it has that writing in the back, and I don't like things like that to be exposed, even though it is the back side, just for my own, you know, sake. I took this craft paper and just cut a piece off, and then hot glue that onto the back, just covering that area. Now you want to make sure that you fold your corners inward, making sure that you have a clean finish, because you will have more of a raw edge where you cut your paper. Again, it's all in the details, and this is purely optional. If the back writing doesn't bother you, if you feel like, you know, that's just a waste of time and no one will see it, then you can, you know, forego this step here. But again, it's just something that I like to do for all my DIYs. So now we're moving on to the next step. I'm using this sort of flannel plaid material that came from Dollar Tree, and it's just one of their scrap pieces that they sell, like a quarter fat or a rolled up piece of fabric that Dollar Tree carries. And I did end up using the entire piece. I was going to cut it down to size, but I was afraid that I might end up cutting less or cutting more than, you know, than I'm supposed to, and then ending up with a smaller fabric piece. So I just opted to just use the entire piece and just sort of play around with the placement and how much I was going to fold it in and how much allowance I was going to give this. So I did take my bundle of flowers that I will be using, just sort of seeing how much give or allowance I needed before I actually glued my fabric piece down, because I was afraid I've made this mistake before, and in another DIY where I cut a piece of fabric with the intention of adding flowers to it, and then I forgot to give an allowance to it, and then by the time I added florals, it was too tight and I didn't have a lot of space. So I wanted to make sure I didn't make that same mistake. So here I'm just fussing with how I wanted to fold my piece. I did have to trim down the bottom part. I wasn't worried about that. I just trimmed down enough. Otherwise, I would have had too much extra fabric. That would have been too bulky. So then I did attach or start to glue my fabric piece down using some hot glue. Now make sure that in order to have a clean edge or a clean finish, you do want to roll your fabric down one time, making sure that the raw hem is not exposed and that you have more of a clean line. Again, that's something optional, but again, it's just one of those things that makes your project look more finished and, you know, not messy or anything like that. Now it's time to address the bottom part of that fabric. I was just deciding on which way I wanted to fold my piece so that I can, you know, finish off the fabric and make sure that I have everything glued into place so that when I place my florals into this, what we're calling a wall pocket, they do not fall out from the other side. So I opted to just fold it in slightly, like, you know, inwards from each side, and then tuck in the extra pieces and then fold it up a couple times and hot glued that down into place. Now moving on to the floral arranging part of it, I took these cute burnt orange and yellowish colored sunflowers from Dollar Tree and just cut my pieces, separating all the stems. Now, if you wanted to keep your bouquet in that one bundle, that's up to you. But I always find that separating your floral pieces just gives you more freedom to arrange your arrangement, your floral arrangement better. And it just allows for you to separate and spread your pieces out and balance your, you know, your DIY. And also when you're adding additional florals, you can kind of have more, you know, perfect spacing and not have one type of flower all bunched up in one section. I used to favor, you know, when I would make floral arrangements, I used to favor just sort of sticking the whole bundle in and then just twisting and bending them. But, you know, as I've gotten further into crafting and whatnot, I just found that actually separating the pieces works a lot better visually. Now for these leaves, I chose to keep this the way they were. They're sort of just attached onto one longer piece, and cutting them apart would not be a really good idea, since you're going to end up with a lot of short pieces and then they would just sort of get lost in this arrangement. And I did want taller pieces in the back. So when I was doing sort of a quick rundown, or like a dry fit of all of my florals, I knew in the beginning that I wanted taller pieces of florals towards the back, which is the reason why I opted to keep the leaves the way they were and I didn't cut them down at all. So they're sort of like the backdrop to this whole floral arrangement, and it sort of does anchor the whole entire arrangement, if you will. Now, as you can see with the taller leaves in the back, it does cover those sunflowers that I decoupaged onto the sign, which is fine with me. You know, if you really wanted to, you can cut your stems down a bit if you wanted the sunflowers to be more exposed. But for me, it's all about, like, in case the leaves were moved or you shifted it a certain way, you have a nice decorative background to look at. So at the end of the day, I'm happy with that decision to still decoupage those sunflowers in the background. But again, you can eliminate that step if you wanted to just do a solid paint color in the back. That's purely up to you. Next, I'm also using these bittersweet stems, and they're also from Dollar Tree. So all of these florals did come from the Dollar Tree. So with the bittersweet, I did cut them individually, separating all of the pieces. So that way I had, again, more leeway in terms of, adding them to wherever it was needed, wherever I needed to fill in areas and add more interest and more variety and dimension. And then with the sunflowers, you want to make sure that you evenly disperse them and that you have some higher and some lower. You want to make sure that all of your pieces are at varying heights, so it does look a lot better, more pleasing to the eyes. You don't want your florals to all be one height. You want them to be varied. So some should be higher, some should be more in the middle, some lower. And that's why I chose to droop some of those bittersweets, bending them downwards and outwards so that you have, something good to look at from different angles. So far, this is looking so pretty in my opinion, and I hope that you're enjoying this. So next step, I wanted to add a ribbon. I knew that I wanted something down there where the fabric meets the bottom of the florals, because it just didn't look complete. So I wanted to bring down some of that orange color towards the bottom. I do like to do that in my DIYs. I like to sort of, bring like certain colors that are on the top, sort of tie them into colors at the bottom, so they all sort of, combine and they're more cohesive looking. And so in this case, I decided to use some orange burlap type ribbon. And what I did here was I wanted to make sort of a two-layered ribbon, if you will. The first thing I did was took one piece and I just crisscrossed the ribbon tails across each other, just like you would an X sort of. And then you're going to want to take a second shorter length of ribbon, and you're going to just simply tuck them under each other, just in a straight line, and just let the two ends meet in the middle. And then you're going to want to layer that on top of the bottom bigger ribbon that you made. Then using a zip tie, you're going to cinch it down the center, and then make sure that you fluff your bows just to see, kind of get a visual of what you're doing here. And then before you tie off anything and cut off your tails, you just want to make sure that you have everything arranged the way you want it to look. And then you can go ahead and, cinch your zip tie and cut off the tails. And then here I'm just finishing off the tails here by dovetailing the edges. So I knew I wanted to add some kind of wording or a tag or some sort. So I remember that I had these cute tags from Hobby Lobby I got on clearance last fall. And I decided to go with the word fall, which was super fitting. It does come as a tag here, as you can see, and with the jute twine. So before hot gluing my bow into place, I hot glued that jute twine where I wanted it to hang, and then hot glued that bow right above the twine so you really couldn't see it. And it was a really nice finishing touch to this DIY, if I do say so myself. So here I was really loving how it came out because, again, you know, the oranges from the flowers, it was sort of brought down to the bottom with the help of that bow. And then that tag at the bottom was sort of like the thing that made it all complete, because it brings your eye downwards and it just makes it look complete. And I don't know, it just adds a lot more interest down to the bottom as well. So I do love how this came out. Just add as much or as little glue as you need. You do have to push a little bit onto that bow just to make sure that your glue is, you know, is fully attached to that fabric piece. And then just fluff and arrange as needed. And there you have it, a very cute and simple wall display for fall. And here is the final look at this project. I love how this display came out. Super cute, super adorable, perfect for a front door, you know, a foyer, or anywhere in your house that you want to add that nice fall touch and beautiful colors. This DIY was so easy to make, but the outcome is amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please share and comment on my videos, as it does help my channel to grow and for YouTube to notice my channel and to push it out for others to enjoy as well. Once again, thanks for watching and for being here. I hope to see you in my next one. Take care.